to be here today together on this online conference. Thank you to all the presenters for the paper or videos you made, you prepared, very interesting and diverse topics. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me to animate this panel. So I introduce myself. I'm an anthropologist and a practitioner of Chinese bodily techniques, and my research more focus on embodied knowledge of Taoist masters. It's a fieldwork-based research with ethnography and also historical anthropology. So I'm interested in embodied knowledge and social change. I do my fieldwork in Hunan province. I now live in Toulouse, and I'm trying to put together this interdisciplinary trajectory in one institution, which is the Institute for Chinese Bodily Techniques, which aims to do research, institutional applications, and also training for practitioners with both practice and theory. So it's a new project. And so today, I think all the papers, the 7 papers we have in this panel are all related to some kind of embodied knowledge coming from Chinese cosmology, ancient cosmology, which takes, and all of these practices, they take sense and they're expressed in the world, the logics, the ideas of this ancient cosmology. And all these papers also, they also treat about what we can call modernity. And modernity brings new sets of categories. And I think one issue I'm very interested in, and I think it's the more stratospheric problematic of all these papers, is the question of the recategorization of these practices in regard to intellectual and institutional aspects in the context of modernity. So we have here a lot of processes of translations, hybridization, adaptations. When we turn to the field, to the social reality, kind of adaptation between the ancient cosmologies and ancient practice and modern cosmology and contemporary practices. So as a researcher, which way we can do to analyze such a complex social phenomena? I think from methodological point of view, we probably need to make an important distinction between, let's say, 4 levels of categories. One, we can say it's like local category, like it's the way people by themselves speak about their own practice. Second level is more institutional or administrative categories. So which way some institution, like the Chinese state, for example, uses categories to organize the society, the Chinese society. The third level is us researchers, us practitioners, we are still human beings, so we have a different way to subjectively experience the practice, or subjectively meet the people, or subjectively read the texts. And so this filter also is a level, we have our own subjective categories. And lastly, we are working on epistemic or scientific categories, which will draw from all the 3 first levels to build categories, intellectual tools, or methods to grasp and analyze social phenomena. So I hope we can advance on this aspect. For me, I see three main topics, three main huge categories to organize the 7 papers. And all these three categories, I think, are part of the modern way to categorize the Chinese bodily practices. So the first one, let's call it patrimony or patrimonialization. It's much linked to the categories of art and culture. And so it will more focus on aesthetic issues, folklore and ethnies, entertainment and tourism, and museums, for example. The second one is sportivization or sport, so which I understand as a modern idea of what bodily techniques are, the way they are to be practiced, and the aim, the meaning they take in society. And here we have especially two branches, like performance and competition on one side, and leisure, well-being on the other side. And the third category is health, and with the kind of biomedical and Chinese medicine. So I try not to use traditional, because in my definition of sport and in my definition of modern Chinese medicine or modern communist Chinese medicine, traditional sport or traditional medicine is contradictory in its own terms, because if sport and the way Chinese medicine has been built, they are kind of reinvention in a modern setting to try to grasp some materials, some aspects of more ancient practices. But I think we're going to go back to this. All of those three aspects, so patrimonialization, sportivization, and health, they have all political stakes, political meanings. And the first one is to build kind of regional or national identities, a sense of belonging to a community, which has an impact inside the community, which, for example, how a state or local government makes itself relevant as a scale of community. So I'm French. Why is it relevant to say that I'm French? And it's because a lot of symbols, a lot of shared representations. And regarding the outside, it's more linked to cultural policy and soft power, is how this community, this state, this region presents itself to the outside and gain some influence in the globalization, for example. I think we also have two different kinds of papers, which are opposite and complementary. So we have some fieldwork-based studies, for example, from Li Cuihan, Li Xiongfeng, Wang Hongwei, and Pierre Porcher. And three more clinical research approaches from Zhang Jianwei, with no Chinese, I have to take the Boston accent now, Johan Listenik, and Gil Yates. So it's also fieldwork-based studies, clinical research studies, and it's also, for the first one, an approach which is much more like how a traditional or ancient practice changes with modernity. And the second one is much more how modernity tries grasp and make good use of ancient practices. You follow me? Okay. So after this general introduction, so I propose to introduce the papers. Maybe we can do 2 groups, because if maybe I will not have enough water to speak about the 7 paper in a row, and you will get tired of my long discourse. I propose. So we will see. I propose to at first see the 4 first papers, and maybe we take a break, we discuss, and then go to the second group. I don't know, Laurent, you have a general thing you want to say now? Or?
It's perfect. It's perfect like this. We can start with the four first papers, and then.
Okay. So I propose. I think it's maybe more interesting to try to put this in these 2 groups, and then to have a general discussion than to answer paper by paper. Even if when you take the speech after, you can also answer some specific question regarding your paper. But I think this way we can maybe achieve more general discussion and arrive to maybe a little higher theoretical level of the issues. Okay? So let's run. Ladies first. Oh yes. So you speak about what you call Zhuang traditional sport. So Zhuang is a ethnic nationality of central China. I think it's north of Guangxi. Yeah. And you start from a traditional practice, which is you describe it as a performance of martial arts. In fact, a martial performance. Which is very important for masculine initiation in the local setting, weddings and alliances between kinship groups, and the building of local authority. I think your paper is also very interesting because you show the relation between the locality and the imperial state. When you show that there is some local specific cultural and political aspects with the King Mohi and the cult of the ox, and then the interplay with the unitary state, the unitary imperial state at that time, with the figure of the Yellow Emperor, which has been replaced by Confucius and Mao Zedong recently. And then you turn to the more recent history of the place and of this Yanwu, which has been so patrimonialized. So first, you give the example of the local museum of the Zhuang people and the role of this performance. And it's interesting because you translate, so this word yen, it can both means a ritual action. So for example, we have the performance studies. Performance studies also, it's in the field of ritual and much more interactive than kind of entertainment or show that maybe so maybe you can speak about this difference between ritual interactions and the entertainment, which is more a show for people just watching. Okay, you follow me?
Yeah, okay. Maybe, maybe.
Yeah, it's okay. We need some part of good luck also, like the random answer is okay also. And then so the yen.
Sorry.
Pardon?
Gilles is trying to call me.
Okay. So I continue. You deal with that. It's okay. And so yen, it's also the idea of diffusion or transmission of a knowledge. In that context, you speak that it's less ritual, less ancestor, less relation to the ancestors, and a more relation to the nationalism, to the state. So for this part, I would ask, can we speak about kind of cult to the state? I mean, is it still a ritual, but not to the gods or the ancestors or the king more, but to the state? In the second aspect, and I also I was also interested in this story of the wolf soldiers, the young Bing. I don't know exactly this history. I just know about this, but I don't know if it's in any relationship with Indo-European cultures, because in Indo-European cultures, there are tradition of wolf and bear fighters, which make kind of berserker. Berserker, you know, they enter in the fury, in the kind of ritual rage and fury, and go to battle like half naked and stuff. I don't know if you heard about this, and if it's any relationship with this.
Oh.
Yeah. So if it's
so I
no, I think I propose we go further for the 4 paper, and after we speak all again together. Okay. So.
Okay.
So we listen to all the aspects, and then you can answer and maybe also give some remarks on the other papers. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So the second paper is Li Xiongfang, and speaks to us about a very interesting ritual linked to the lion dance, the She Wu.
Yeah.
And a very interesting ritual, very famous ritual for the in the studies of religion of the Kaiguang. So you explain us. So if we don't know so much, we perhaps think like it's okay. Some people they just dance with the lion and stuff. But you explain how this lion comes to life. In fact, how it is animated and become symbolically efficient through this ritual. So the Kaiguang ritual is very common in Chinese and I think even Asian cultures because it's the same ritual. Kaiguang is to open to the light, and often with this pencil and often the red color. And it's the very common ritual to consecrate a new statue of the god in a temple, for example, or in a home. And it's also the same to initiate a medium, a spirit medium, the ritual for which will allow him to receive the god and speak in the name of the god when he's possessed. It's also a Kaiguang ritual. So so it's really linked to animation and a relation, a direct communication with, let's say, the divine world or something. And so then maybe you can just answer very briefly, because you speak about the word Shengtou, but Tao is the head, or it's because you translate by the sacred lion, but Tao, what's this Chinese character? Shengtou, the Tao?
渗透
Shengtou.
about 渗透 yeah just the 那个lion shaped puppet if give it a knife, it called 渗透。
那么
it
透
it
透
called
是哪个字啊？透是这个透的透吗？透这个字，我不知道是什么汉字啊？
汉字是sacred 神圣的圣 sacred head.
Yes. So it's not
sacred head.
So you mean it's not the so Shengtou, the translation of Shengtou, it's not sacred lion, is the sacred head. So it's
sacred head.
the head of the two people, the real people that go under to perform. No?
Yes, Xiongfeng, if you want, you can type the character on
I understand.
the conversation window.
I think for my part, I think I understand, but okay, you will say later. Let's proceed. This ritual. Okay. So you show also that this ritual artifact instrument can be used in very different local settings and situations. So it's linked to the initiation of young strongmen. It regulates the competition for local influence between different groups of strongmen. It takes part in processions, which aim at defining the local territory. It takes part at events for founding new places, such as shops or firms or things like this. And all of this, you show very well that it has a very important exorcistic aspect. It aims to expulse the dangers, the pathologies, the calamities, the things who can threaten the peace away. So I will have one critique, and I hope a constructive critique and advice according to the way an analytical framework you use for your analyze this ritual, which is you try to use the framework of the rite of passage from the series of Arnold von Gennep and Victor Turner. But I don't think it's really work, because you said that it's the state 1 and state 2, and between is state of liminality or going to the margins. But in fact, I think it's quite the opposite which happened, because the lion stays in the center, and what is expelled in the margins is the ghosts, the bad spirits. Okay, so I think maybe you should take a look at consecration rituals for statues. For example, I think it's a lot of studies about this. There is just one new book which speak about this. For example, if you like, and you can see, and also there is Taoist rituals, kind of foundation rituals, Jintan or Kaitan. I think maybe that kind of examples are interesting, maybe to compare with your fieldwork case. Then Wang Hongwei introduced to us the initiatic ritual of in the Bamanchuan.
Yeah.
Especially the ritual of Bai Shefu, so to pray master to become a disciple. And what I think is very interesting is you insist very well on the corporative, the way a ritual community of practitioners makes one body, in fact, one group, the strength of the group. And that this is based, you show that this is based both on the practice of bodily techniques and specific gestures, the fact of sharing this time, this repeated time of practice, and also of sharing common values and meanings. So here we have an idea, a very concrete idea of the strength and the substantiality of community. So according to your analysis, you show that the model of the patrilineal descent, so the patrilineals from father to son, okay, the patrilineal descent, you say, or filiation, serve as a model for this group, and which way it is reinvented and very deeply transformed. And what is interesting, I think, because here you give an example of something which is very common in Chinese society. For example, you also have ritual tradition in Taoism or Buddhism, with the Shefu, Shexiong, Shedi, and all the genealogy with the Sheye, and then the Zushe, the Shezhu, and you have all this genealogical model is very common in China, also in corporation of craftsmen, for example. You have also this, and even all this vocabulary is also very common in the daily language. For example, the ai, the taxi driver is the shofu, and we are all lao gamen, no? So I think I say this because I think it's if you want to deepen your research about this, it's a lot of fields of areas you can also compare with, and maybe not to take so much the model of the family, the model of the patrilineage, as maybe the model of the patronage is not the origin of all of this. Maybe it's more complex and diverse. That's my idea. And I also think it's a little bit, I will ask you something about something that feels to me is a contradiction, because you say that we are here folk martial art, folk, so I don't know so much. So folk, usually it's opposed to the elite or to the cultivated, to the power. And then I think the way you describe the master-disciple relationship is very based on Confucian interpretation of master-disciple relation. So we speak about obedience, respect, hierarchy, which is very martial also. So maybe what is martial, what is Confucian, and what is folk or local, I don't know, in this ritual kinship. This would be my question. And where am I? I am here. And then the fourth paper, Pierrick Porcher. So I have to speak English because I was going to speak French. Also showed from a study, fieldwork study in Shechahai and Fujian Wushu team, so in the elite of the Wushu as a sport, show some continuities or some adaptation from a traditional, I need to cut my phone, some traditional, of just what we were speaking about before, of this kind of ritual kinship, in fact. So, you very usefully remind us the history, the contemporary history of the building of Wushu as an official sport in modern China. You underline several trends which I think are specific beyond our just our examples and our materials are specific of what is modernity. When you speak, I think about simplification of the techniques, standardization of the techniques. You also show the influence of Western origin techniques of drill and body preparation. The aim at performance and excellence according to 3 criteria maybe, or 2 or 3, like acrobatics, aesthetics, and fighting. And then you also underline this context of competition, which is carried on with Olympic ideology and a wish of universality of the Chinese culture, like a new Tianxia, which is going to be above all over the world. This especially for a competition with the US and Russia. And I would add maybe deeper historical perspective in the 19th century with maybe also maybe some kind of revenge and some kind of getting back a place after the sad entry of China in the colonialist globalization of the 19th century. And then this process aims at purifying, so a kind of official modern sport with Chinese characteristic from all its feudal and superstitious aspects, so-called feudal and so-called superstitious aspects, and to transfer, and also very interestingly, you speak about this idea of transferring the authority from the master to the state. So, however, as I said in the introduction, when we look the cosmology, the discourse, it's this way, but when we go on the field, we see a lot of process of adaptation, hybridation, translation, a lot of strategy of transmission, in fact. And it's very interesting the way you underline the continuity of this tradition of lineage style organization through a technical transmission. With all the references to ritual parenthood and to brotherhood, a lot of affection, mutual help and solidarity that give, again, substance to the community, and this shared universe of practice, representation and values also, which make a common language to all those people. So I think it's very interesting the way you show how lively the kind of community of practice. We can call maybe this a community of practice, with this vertical transmission from master to disciple, but also this horizontal transmission with the brothers of transmission. And which way this community of practice reshaped itself is very vivid and reshaped itself in the context of much more remote institutional and cosmological changes, despite of. So maybe I'm interested to know a little bit more your ideas for the balance, if we oppose in a way like the local, the community of practice and what's really happening here. And this more remote, abstract, cosmological setting. What's the balance between the two? Is the master, disciple, and the community of practice instrumentalizing the official sport, modern sport setting, or the opposite, or it's not contradiction, it's complementary, I don't know. So something maybe a little bit more on this topic, I would be interested to know. So, I drink, it's your turn. So Ehan, are you ready?
Okay, I try to answer the questions. If I have something wrong or I don't understand what you are asking, please correct me. Thank you, George. Okay. First is I mean your question is about the folk and the nation, right? The activities in folk and the nation. I think in the ancient just like Ming Dynasty and Qing Dynasty, the activities held in folk is more, but nowadays the activities can more be held by country, by government. Maybe by government is more. I think, but nowadays the folk activities is weakened, and the government may strengthen the how support them. Sorry, I'm asking how to express the answer. Sorry.
It's good to be surprised. It's a pleasure.
Okay, maybe the and now the ritual and the belief is now weakened, and the maybe the value focus on the health and life, our life. So I think the government may support the activities. Oh, so it is my first answer.
Yeah.
And the second, you said 浪兵, right?
Wait.
Yeah.
So wait, no, I would ask differently. Do you think the belief in the King Mo and the belief in the Yellow Emperor now has changed to be a belief in the party state? Can we say this, or can we not say this? What's different?
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. You know, in my paper, Huang family, it's very important Huang family. It's one of the 6 families, and because its family name is Huang, so they want to show their honor, and they maybe have some relationship with Huang, April Huangdi. So yeah, because the same family name. Yeah.
So there are the
It's their
descendants.
honor.
They just descend directly from the Yellow Emperor. The descent, the same genealogy. You go up, the ancestors is the Yellow Emperor, the first one.
Yeah. It's very honored to be the same as emperor. So yeah. So they may so proud of themselves and have some stories about their family. So they
And so you mean now the secretary of the Communist Party has more authority because he has the direct descent from Mao, no, or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So no, I think it's interesting to in fact, in a way, in my presentation, I separe like ancient and new cosmology, but if I separe this, it's after to also see what's the same and what is different. But it's a lot of things are just a little bit moved. So, for example, before it was the Huang the chief of the cult to the Huang ancestor, who was the main important person in the village. Now, who is the main important person in the village? It's maybe the secretary of the Communist Party. And why? Not because he's linked to the Yellow Emperor, but because he's linked to the Communist Party. It's still a cosmology behind the authority. It's my and it's still beliefs and knowledge about authority. So that's just my point. But I it's hard to understand.
Oh, sorry, I can't follow you. Maybe I need some help.
Like we can.
Eric, help me.
So I think I don't know if I'm understanding right. It would be that that in the past there was a ritual for the emperor, and that now the like now that the government are organizing these activities, it could be interpreted as a ritual for the national state or the communist state. Do I understand right?
Maybe you can
I
speak
write
Chinese.
So
translate the question for me.
就是以前是皇帝，就以前是为了皇帝举行一个活动，然后现在国家政府他是举行这个活动，所以这个活动有没有代表一种不可以对比以前为了皇帝举行一个活动，然后现在是为了国家政府举行一个活动，不可以这样说？
I think it's these activities held now. It's not merely for government. It's for benefits. You know, we held some activities to make money and try to attract tourists to come there and show their cultures and show other things, not merely to support government. They want to make money for themselves, maybe. And now this activity is not held now because maybe there are so few. There maybe the tourist is so few, so they can't hold now. So they stopped the activity showing.
Or you mean they stopped formally,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
do they continue to keep it in somehow alive in an informal way?
Yeah, they.
Because I
the
was wondering about to what extent we can say that there is a historical continuity from the past to now, and what place have these rituals in their daily life, and what the spiritual values of that in their daily life. I mean, it's not only about tourism, it's not only about politics, it's or maybe these have also a spiritual values in their daily life. And I was wondering the historical continuity of that. And have you observed this kind of rituals by yourself, and what's your feeling about that as a researcher?
Okay. These activities may have several forms to be shown. Maybe they have other varieties of activities such as sports games, competitions, just like forms like that. And their belief and ritual is now exist. It's now exist. But mainly for life and benefits. They also have their belief, such as Zhuang, just like Huang Emperor. They also like that. They also honored to be the same family, and at the same time they are modern now, not the before the family like the ancient like Ming and the dynasty like that. Can you help me?
No,
It's okay. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
I think we should a little bit going to the second paper. So for the wolf stuff next time. Next time you will explain us like this wolf fighting. Okay.
Yeah. I hope these activities will held and in more forms.
Yeah. But whatever, it's very interesting to also to underline the importance of the Caishan now in China, like the god of money, which is now really even stronger than the Communist Party. So we are going to move to the
Yeah. It's for real life.
yes. So we move from to the lions. Lions.
雄风，
雄黄
雄风。
Lion dance, yeah.
Lion dance.
Okay, thank you. It's my honor to take part in this online conference, and just I will explain the 开关点睛 ritual. of lion dance performance. Just like I had a presentation, the ritual has 3 stages. But just previous the 渗透 is secret hide. Just through the ritual, or after the ritual, the puppet have been given a knife and a spiritual. So we call him it as secret hide 渗透 just have it has soul and spiritual, and when we performance, we don't consider the puppets, just the puppets. They have knives and the swords and the spirituals, just like we face the gods or god or the immortals. So just the 开关念经 rituals, the function is to give the knife and the spiritual and the sword to the puppies, to the lion-shaped puppies.
Yeah. So did you know about this? I showed you this book before. I think it's no. I think you understand what I said to you before. I'm not sure you understand very clearly what I speak before about your paper.
I don't know this book before. Sorry, I don't know this book before. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not sorry. But maybe you can find some ideas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you to you. You know something about the Jintan ritual? Jintan. It's a 就是道教的仪式就是开坛或者金丹的，你知道？应该也要去看一看吧。丹就是丹这个简单的丹嘛，知道吗？北京简单的丹。
圣诞。
Perhaps write on the comments the Chinese characters.
开坛忘记。
金丹no. The lion-shaped puppies have no 蛋 no 金蛋 ，yeah no 金蛋。
哦，不是这个蛋。
是要比较，因为我觉得这个可以的这个仪式的方法和这个仪式的想法跟金蛋有关系，不是说有在你这里有金蛋，但是就是想法要比较一下，我觉得有。
神坛。
金丹。
这个鸡汤。
开坛或者金丹嘛。
开坛。
在这里面我知道应该有关系。
金坛。
师兄他说的是开坛嘛，就是古代法师开坛。
应该是，因为你是对的，应该是开坛。
开坛。师兄。
Yeah。
对，你去看一下这个东西，应该可以帮助你啊，我觉得。
好。the ritual of 开关点睛 just like a magic, and from Taoism and Buddhism, and it's very, very fascinating.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but I think it's very important also to see this this link between ritual and martial arts, because also the lion dance you didn't emphasize, you didn't underline, but lion dance, it's a lot of martial techniques. It's a lot of martial arts techniques inside. So it's very important to underline this link. So it's not like sport and religion. It's just lion dance, you know?
Yeah. Martial arts and the lion dance, they link.
Yeah. And also magic ritual also. All of this.
Okay.
So we have these categories, okay? But what's your object is lion dance. So lion dance has all of these different aspects together in one practice.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So after the wolf and the lions, and so we move to more humanistic Barman Chuan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My English is very trouble. I cannot understand a lot of for it. So I wanted to please 定员. Can you translation for me?
So 定员 it's me. 我了解的是，第一就是民间，我们叫民间武术。这个民间武术和它的其他武术有什么？为什么我们叫民间？为什么把民间这个词放在武术前面？它代表什么意思？可能是第一，就是介绍一下民间武术为什么叫民间。
丁元，你帮我翻译一下。
OK， I try。
目前像中国武术，它分为竞技武术和传统武术，但是在竞技武术，你先翻译。
我们一句话。I try to translate. So I was asking him about like the folk categories that we put. So folk, that's as I understand, folk. It's to translate the Chinese word 民间, which means within the population. And so first, the first thing to understand, according to Rouet's, is that the martial arts are divided between the folk martial arts and the competition martial arts, sport martial arts. 我们可以继续。
他们都属于官方组织的。
So both of them are like official, from official organization.
Yeah. So.
洪伟，你继续吧。
民间武术或者民间更多的是一种非官方的。
No. So folk is something that is not within an official structure.
老百姓中间广泛使用的，大家共同认同的。
It's something within the general population and something that people from grassroots practitioners identified with.
So it is opposed to official, in fact. So it's a folk official.
那你觉得民间是跟官方是两个回事？就是民间是非官方，然后那个
我明白，就目前的目前的这个发展情况来看，他们都是有相交融的地方。
So yeah, both have connection with each other.
比如说
For example.
民间武术很多都属于非遗项目，但是这些非遗项目很多都在官方的比赛中正常进行。
So for example, a lot of folk martial arts, so like within the population, they have been registered as an intangible cultural heritage, and now we can find these practices in competition as well.
And so the other question I think I had, it was about for your case study. It was about I was saying that I felt a lot of kind of martial influence, Confucian influence, and also this folk influence. So what is folk, what is Confucian, and what is martial in the example in this in the Bamenchuan group he studied.
那我翻译是，就在你研究的巴门拳，有儒家的影响，有武的影响，就武术的武，还有就民间文化，就民间风俗，然后你可以试一试分开，就是哪一个方面是民间，哪一个方面是儒家，哪一个方面是武。
就是关于社父徒弟的关系啊，
关于社父徒弟的关系。
我感觉这个基本上都是属于中国儒家文化的范畴里面的东西。
范畴是什么？
因为它的产生都是，你就这么翻译吧。因为它的产生都是在中国儒家文化的背景下，才有了这种传承的仪式，民间的这一些民俗活动。
So the transmission of this, the old practice, the technical knowledge, but also the framework with master from disciple. Everything comes from the Confucian background context. Everything was created under the Confucian context.
So, what's the use of Minjian in this hegemonic context? 民间是没有什么影响的。就是在这里，别的没有。
那就是说，如果是儒家背景，那民间文化应该怎么处理这个民间文化？民间文化哪一个就怎么影响这个师徒关系的传承模式？
如果方便的话，我们可以继续说英文，因为我恐怕那个Edouard和尤安不会说中文，所以我。如果方便的话，可以尽量说英文。
OK。
帮我翻译一下，
we were trying to identify the influence in the Bamanchuan group he studies with the. Because according to him, I mean, he describes all the relation from master to disciple and the transmission of technique through a Confucian framework. Yeah. So I was trying to provoke him a little bit to a Troi show to see what's the because he also used, in a way, it's Minjian or like popular or local culture. And in other ways, it's all Confucian. So it was my idea, but I think it's a complicated debate at this stage of globalization. So we will go forward. Thank you a lot. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your. So now we turn to Pierrick and the elite of Wushu sport.
So perhaps first to do the link between the previous question, because actually I have a quote from a sinologist from Hungary in my paper who says that actually there is a kind of Confucianism that is unspoken or people are unaware of it, but as a set of behaviors and beliefs and values that people in the population, so in the folk, in the Minjia, in the folk context, are using in their everyday life, and that could be linked with the Confucian ethic and morality. So I think what is popular in the master disciple, it's precisely this Confucian unspoken and kind of grassroots set of behavior that are Confucian but are not categorized as Confucian by local actors, according to this sinologist.
Just to answer this, maybe it's also this. I think it's very true for sure. Like for us, we are also have some Catholic bits in France, and we don't call it like this. But in another way, sometimes what is legitimate is the Confucian aspect, and so the people also have the strategy to put this legitimacy forward and to hide more grassroots behavior or small gods or a lot of stuff like this, which are not as much legitimate toward the discourse regarding the dominant discourse. But yeah, all of this is a melt. It's complex. Yeah.
And so interestingly, so when I did my paper, I wrote it down following the advice from the athlete that I was following, was saying you should reflect on this when we were speaking, and after I wrote it down, I contacted him to ask his opinion on what I have written, especially about him. Was he agreeing about what I said about what he said? And I was like, this is like the way to invite your big brother to have a lunch, the way you invite him to drink in a certain manner. All this set of behavior are Confucian, right? And he said, no. Like, there is a small part of Confucianism in it, but it is the traditional culture. And so right now, as I observed with the people I interviewed, and it's something also that Zlotea, the sinologist, also observed, is that the official category is more to say that is Chinese outstanding traditional culture, where in fact there is a lot of Confucianism, but it's never speaking out. For example, Xi Jinping, when he do official discourse, he will never say Confucianism or Confucius, He will never speak out, but he will always say outstanding traditional culture, and he will also like say the set of values that are associated with Confucian, but without saying it out loud that is Confucius. And there is a set, like we can interpret this in various manners, but it kind of follow what you said, like how people categorizing, and perhaps it's changing. Perhaps I don't know if perhaps 20 years ago people were more legitimizing the behavior by referring to Confucianism, and right now it's more legitimizing by referring as like the Chinese tradition. So yeah.
Yeah.
So the other question that I understand you have on my paper was the balance between the local communities of practice, or more precisely the point of articulation between like elite modern sport communities and more the traditional framework. So I can reflect on that.
I mean, yeah, the aspect of modernity and the aspect of tradition, yeah. What's the hybridation, in fact, or the opposition, or the...
Yeah. So in my work, I lead my research in this way. I go to elite sport team and I try to trace back traditional elements, and I do the opposite. I go to traditional framework, like masters and disciples, like traditional lineages, and I try to trace back modern elements in their practices. It's not something that I purposefully do as like a methodological stance. It's more something that has came naturally through the fieldworks. So my paper for this panel was about how these athletes are taking these kind of behaviors, probably from their families, from their friends, probably also from movies and TV series, and like the collective imaginary with fictions works, and we're articulating them into this modern site that is the sport team and the training facilities. And there is also another thing is that, in fact, like for example, if you take a Tai Chi Chuan athlete, the Taolu, the set of movements he will practice and he will compete with, it is performed in a different way than the traditional master would. The values associated with the knowledge also varies. The transmission between the coach and various athletes also varies, but it is still the same. The name are the same. So I don't know, like the first technique would be the opening of the Taolu, and so on the technical level, I think you can trace back some body knowledge that are conceived as the same. In the traditional framework, as far as I know, I basically interviewed perhaps 3 or 4. I did extensive fieldwork with 3 Tai Chi Chuan master, and they will all say this is Tai Chi gymnastic, Tai Chi Cao, or Tai Chi. Yeah, so, but they will still refer it as Tai Chi. They will not say this is not Tai Chi. They will say this is not Tai Chi Chuan, this is Tai Chi gymnastic. So, yeah.
No, please go ahead. I interrupt you.
Just because I think if I just just cut me when it's enough, because I think I can.
Yeah, I just have a question for you, Pierrick.
Yes.
Because we are comparing the relationship between the coach and the athletes.
Yes.
With the relationship between a disciple and a master in a traditional context.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about the modern transmission of a sport for tradition, for example. But I was wondering about the dimension of confidentiality, of the secret, because an important aspect of the traditional transmission in martial arts, and especially for spiritual values or religious values, is the dimension of secret, or the purpose in tradition context and in sport context, if we can call it like that. The purpose are different. For the sport, you have to perform, you have to learn something very we go back to the efficiency issue, right? Yeah. We have to learn something very fast, and we have to perform. But in a traditional context, it's a little bit different, and it's more about the master. I mean, as I have observed it, the master cannot give everything to the disciple immediately. It's a long process, and it takes like years and years to get a bit of a knowledge of the master. Yeah. But in the sport context, it's faster than that, because we have to perform, we have to compete, we have to get results. And it's the same for Johan, who was observing the curative aspect of tradition for cure a depression, for example. We have to have results faster than it will be the case in a tradition context. So I was wondering about the secret dimension. If you can say something about that, and perhaps maybe after you, Johan, can add something also about that. Yeah.
I do have a few questions to add.
Okay, so maybe first, Pierrick, if you want to answer.
Okay. So about the secrecy, so I think, as I interpreted, is the sport context. It is thought at the very roots to be something that is open for everybody. It's precise. It's like to standardize and to make a competition rule for everybody. It's precisely because we want to promote, when I say we, like it's I speak from the institutional perspective. So they want to promote the sport as far as they can, as many people as we can get internationally as well. So that's something that echo. It's the precise opposite of the trade that the master have. That's his secrets, and that's in panel 1. They were speaking about it is a trick, like martial arts, as like the technique is a trick that you learn, and the efficiency is a trick that you will use, so the master he has something that is very valuable. So for sure he won't open it up to everybody because it's very valuable. I have to find people that are really worth the teaching, and also perhaps also on economical dimension.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, that being said, in a sport elite team, the coach he will teach only those athletes that are selected within a very how to say that, a very it's very difficult to get in a professional team. So there will be perhaps 100 people who want to go to the Beijing team. There will be tests, and a lot of them also, like they enter the team, they stay for 1 year, and then they didn't get to the level required, and so they have to go out.
But
only
once they get into the top team,
yeah,
do they have access to the knowledge immediately, or the coach maybe just have some, they keep it for him?
No. Yeah, I think once you get in the basic team, you already have the whole access to the whole knowledge.
All right, because in the traditional context, it's not always the case. Even the son of the master sometimes cannot have access to all the knowledge, and it's happened. I mean, we have a lot of situations like that the master didn't give all of his knowledge, and then he died, and you have kind of. So that's why I was asking you this.
So there is a kind of secrecy as well, but it's more linked it's more related to the selection, the sport team selection process.
Okay, thank you.
So if I can jump in, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I was wondering about a few things that were related to what already came up in discussion. But first of all, you seem to suggest, if I understood it correctly, that there's a shift from the model of the transmission from the master to disciple to the sports model. But is it actually a creation of parallel systems rather than one system that's replacing the other? And in the terms of the students, in the talk from Wang Hongwei, we heard that the master selects the students in part because of moral reasons and character reasons, but the selection of the students for the sports is based on entirely different principles, I would think. And how does that change where the Tai Chi is going if the different kinds of people essentially are chosen to carry it on? And my third question is, you mentioned in your video, you talk about the goal is to win medals and to go faster. And how does that compare with, for example, Chen Menqing's principle of the importance of investment and loss, and Tai Chi as embodied spirituality? Is that element replaced with something else in the sport model? And finally, when you interviewed the masters who gave these forms over, the external forms, it sounds like, perhaps not the internal part, I don't know how much they gave. How did they feel about this new model of Tai Chi going into an elite sport? Were they supportive? Did they think it was a good thing? Did they have mixed feelings? What were their reservations? And did they talk at all about the difference between transmitting the external versus the internal?
Yeah. Okay. So I try to answer 1, 2, 3, 4. So first, about the two frameworks and the shift. So it's not replacement, because right now the two are existing parallelly. The two have been also reappropriated within the official policy, since now Tai Chi Chuan masters and their lineage are being registered as intangible cultural heritage. And even if masters are not registered as official transmitter of heritage items, they still exist. I would say that every masters has at least a school that is registered, or like an official structure. I didn't meet any masters who were operating at 100% outside of any official structures or something like that. But I think it exists in the countryside. I think so. This is about now the selection of the students. would be a very interesting research to evaluate the socio-cultural backgrounds of traditional practitioners and compared to modern athletes or elite athletes. I don't have any data as to is it really different persons? Like, I mean, when they have been trained, they are different person, because the master, they will be in a lineage, and they will represent a school or something, and the athletes, they will most probably be coach in a sport team, or a university teacher, or there is also like a lot of professional path for elite athletes after their career. So I don't know if this is really two different social categories. Like, yeah, I don't know. I know that in countryside, for sure, there is still like villages where like all the children, they go to the local master school because it's very convenient, and everybody does that in the village, and so there is this kind of social process. But these also can go to an official martial arts school and become athletes afterwards. So that's my thought about. And what does it mean about Tai Chi? Since I don't know if it's really two socio-cultural categories, I cannot say if there is a difference between the past. But what does it mean about Tai Chi is now Tai Chi, like, despite whether there is a difference between the social context of the athletes or traditional practitioners, now Tai Chi is a well-instituted sport, and there is competition and demonstration, and now in school as well, and also the standardized movements and set of movements. So now it's for Tai Chi Chuan, it means that beside being a traditional and grassroots practice, it's also an institutional practice. That's for me. And what the master says about this development. So I quote, because these are still in my head. So there is the famous. We don't despise what they are doing. So it's a master who speak. We don't despise what they are doing. Speaking of the athletes, speaking of the institution, because they do that to promote the martial arts. 推广，他们是为了推广。So we don't despise, but we are transmitting what our peers, 老前辈, so the ancestor, like the previous generation, we are transmitting this. So we don't do institutional things. There is this quote. The other quote is, they train the external aspect, and we are focusing on the internal aspect. 他们是外在，我们是内在。我们是关注内在。他们they say this quote as well. And the last quote is about this is Tai Chi gymnastic, or this is Tai Chi dance, Tai Chi Cao, Tai Chi Wu. So they have this to say, masters. And it's without my analysis, because but I still remember the quote.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pierrick. Thank you. Interesting paper. Just two things for this interaction, like between a kind of traditional form of transmission and a kind of modern form of transmission. It was already a book of 99, I think, from Elizabeth Xu on the transmission of Chinese medicine. Yeah. And it's a couple of articles on the transmission of Taoism in the new religious schools in Shanghai. It's a Yang Der Hui. If somebody's interested, Yang Der Hui, D-E-R and R-U-E-Y, I think. He wrote 2 or 3 articles about this comparison. But also, finally, when I was listening to you, I think we also have to go beyond this like of bipolar analysis, because maybe one way is to differentiate the context of transmission. So is it in California, where it's also like you just eat macrobiotic food and do Pilates, yoga on the beach, also Tai Chi? Or is it in 17th century China, in the escort company of the Northern Commerce Road, and you have to fight with the bandits? Is it, I mean, okay, so is it the army? Is it in the temple? If it's the Tai Chi in the temple, it's also linked to ritual and stuff. Is it for fighting purpose like police or militia or stuff? If it's modern police, it's not the same as ancient militia, who also is the actor with the gods and the rituals we speak before. So I think maybe try to spot well the context and maybe make a kind of typology grow from different contexts with different parameters like this can help. So maybe, but it's
yeah, I agree.
I would have 2 more questions. One for Pierrick, but also for everyone, and another especially for Johan. So the first one for Pierrick, it was, and for the rest, it was about the. Sorry.
No, I was saying that for me it's okay. I have a lot of time, but it's already 4:45. And just I don't know if you want to ask for the Yuan. I didn't introduce the other 3 papers, and
right.
And I think Gilles didn't arrive. I didn't see him.
But in fact, Gilles cannot join the discussion because he was on a mobile phone.
Ah.
Yeah, and that's why he cannot join the conversation.
So maybe you finish with this part, and after we pass to the second part with the two presenters, and maybe I will say just a few words.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue with.
Okay, so I just asked the question for the panel 5A, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so no, it was about the ritual ceremony of 拜师仪式, and especially for Pierrick, because you are investigating in a, how I should say, in a sport context, and do they perpetuate the ceremony of 拜师 among the athletes and the coach context? That's my question, and maybe Li Suihan and Li Xiongfeng and Wang Hongwei, etc. You can also add something about that if you have observed this kind of phenomenon.
So perhaps I translate just 就是他在体育武术体育这个框架百事一事，你们觉得有没有在竞技体育框架？Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, 中方。
Because the 拜师, sorry, if I can add just one more detail, because the 拜师 imply a lot of rules between the disciple and the master, and I was wondering if this kind of rules, which are also related to some spiritual values, if these kind of rules are currently relevant in the sport context.
就是师徒关系中的规则，在教练和运动员的关系里面有没有一样的这种规则？
Okay. I have not researched this area, but I know about something. In the traditional the 拜师 ritual have some specific stages and values. For example, when 拜师ritual begin go on. The students will give a cup of tea.
Yeah.
We'll give a cup of tea for the master, and the cup of tea.
So now
we cannot hear you anymore.
Yeah.
那个地面叫改口杯，改口杯，改口就是那个盖口盖，这个 cap 不要 cap called in Chinese 盖。
Okay.
The
改口 open the gap 就改口就是 change the name for the master.
Okay.
Change the name for the master. But in the sports area, no ritual such as this.
Okay.
No ritual. And in my 我的经验当中啊，我的经验 in my experience and the sports management will be not allowance allow to this ritual. No
ritual.
No this ritual. No this ritual. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thanks. Perhaps we can switch to the panel 5B.
The recompose panel 5B because it's no gills, and I moved Dianwei to the health part.
Oh yeah, right.
So just if you like, I can do like I have done in the beginning and remind a little bit the content and present this through my own lens. Dianwei, you presented us a paper on clinical research. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, we move now from a perspective, fieldwork-based perspective, and the perspective more of the relation between tradition and modernity through the lens of art, patrimonialization, culture, and sport, and traditional sport, and kind of more competition sport. And now we move more and more to something which is very linked to the art sciences and to biomedicine aspect of health. The use of Taijichuan in the frame of this modern communist Chinese medicine, which is we should. So here I think it's important to underline the issue of invention of tradition. Okay, it's a historian is Hobsbawm, English historian. He underlined this idea. It's like all tradition, they are invented in a given period of time in order to answer to some contemporary issues. Okay, and then some elements from the past are taken together, reinvented, rearranged, and then they are presented as a produce of the tradition like this. Okay, so there is a lot of reinterpretation of some different theories. Again, standardization of very diverse medical tradition, and in the same way, a very interesting and I think a very coup de maître, I don't know how to say, like a real, like to incorporate something from this correlative analogic cosmology of the yin yang and stuff and 5 phases and stuff into a modern biomedical setting. So with a lot of things purified and like the ghost thrown away from the center, but still a very strong, I think, and I think we're going to have more and more impact on this modern Chinese medicine, communist Chinese medicine, since I think that for the World Health Organization now in the next 10 years, it's going to be much more important, and it's going to gain institutionalization in the West more and more. So all of this is very important topics, I think. So your paper, Jianwei, you show a very fast and important development of clinical researches on Tai Chuan in the last 20 years, especially in China and the US. You show some focus of these researches and some fields that are invested by the researches and which are especially chronic disease. It's another focus, we can say, like more biomechanic with like posturology, the posture, the stability, functional capabilities, and for the old people to prevent to fall, with also the Parkinson disease. Also several aspects for the perception of the self and the body, as you say, for the feeling of the pain, management of stress, sleep, tiredness. We move to more psychological or physiological aspects. And also it opens to the quality of life in a more in a broader sense. So and also this is an important issue, I think, because it's also we have this in the daily life. People are in the well-being representation, and it's also entering the firms, the institutions. You have to Tai Chi or the yoga course in the office and stuff like this. So for the institutional part, I think this is we are here with area which is developing in the society here in the West. And so then you also show that in the recent years, the evolution has been made toward cognitive and neurological approach, notably linked with cognitive plasticity, and which seems to make so this, if you can develop on this aspect, I'm very interested. This aspect, I think, and maybe others, make a difference between, for example, Tai Chuan or Chinese traditional bodily practice with the internal aspect, make it different from kind of fitness, aerobic or Pilates or gymnastic or kind of, you know, because here in France you give some Tai Chi course and you have the 65 years old lady say, oh, this morning I went to gym and yesterday I was in the Pilates and now you have Tai Chi. So I want to have more argument to explain the difference. Okay, and then you introduce also your own research about the recovery of heart disease, heart pathologies. And in this also I was, and so I think it's very interesting because we said before, try to identify some typical trends of transformation of this practice through aspects of modernity. And we speak about simplification, we speak about standardization. And so, yeah, it's interesting because we see that it's really the methodology you use, in fact, this clinical and statistical approach, which obliges you to have simple and standardized methods, so as you can try it on several people in a rigorous way, and then make statistics, and then I think it's interesting to see this from the perspective, from the grassroots perspective. It's just you're doing this research and you need that. So thank you for all of this interesting information. So then we have Johan paper about Tai Chi and depression. And we then move to a little bit more sociological and psychological issue with kind of sociological questioning. It's really also interesting that you underline the very deep impact of depression in our society, where everything is accelerating, where the meaning is not so easy to find sometimes. And I was really impressed by the globality of this disease, and with a really high impact, because you speak about hundreds of thousands of suicides per year. So this is this link between the movement of the body and the mood, as you say. Like the movement of the body can heal or can influence the mood, which is very typical, in fact, ritual logic from ancient China. Also, let's say the bad mood also can bring to bad gestures. I mean, or definitive gestures. So it's, I said this relation from bodily techniques, or like gesture, to say, generally speaking, gesture and mood, or psychological states, is typical of rituals, and is also typical of the ancient medical theory. It's the famous chapter in the Suwon, I think. Everybody speak about this. Like, okay. And so you studied this book and this method from Dr. Kuhn, which and you propose a lot of methodological insights and tracks to be followed, which are very interesting. But I'm not so much familiar with those kind of clinical aspects than with the anthropology of local settings in the countryside. Yet I think I want to I think you underline at least 2 or 3 interesting kind of what I call modern trends. And the first one, I think, is the specialization of knowledge and techniques. Means you underline also this idea to make kind of set of Tai Chi movement for special kind of groups, like for all people, for women, for people, and then also more specifically in the medical field to make kind of set of movement for such symptom. And this is a general question I have regarding the scientificization of this communist modern Chinese medicine. it's because when I speak with Catherine Despeux, we speak about this sometimes. And last time I was asking, but in the ancient treaties, which way it's articulated? Because I don't know if you know her, she's a specialist for history of medicine and history of Chinese bodily practice from the INALCO. And she said, no, but the ancient treaties, it's all different. I mean, the effect of this acupoint with this symptom or the opposite or stuff, you don't have in the history just one agreement on that. It's just a lot of local different tradition. They have this. And now, in the modern setting, needs to standardize and need to say this point, this issue, and if you have this issue, you treat this point. And so it's the same. So now you're going to have that disease or that you're going to be of that kind of socio-cultural or race group, and to have a good eugenic development, you're going to be treated or to develop your powerful, I don't know how to say that, your empowerment. You're going to be empowered by that set of techniques. So for me, it asks me questions.
Perhaps Georges,
yeah.
Because I think we are running.
It's just the two last thing I want to say, and after I just say goodbye at the end. One very interesting thing is the focus on posture or on one set of movements instead of transitions. And so I think it's very interesting because it's I think it's kind of a Western Chinese opposition when the Western cosmology is much more interested in substance, in a static ideas, or even immortal, eternal idea or eternal God. Chinese thinking is basically based more on dynamic and changes. And so the fact and according to my practice also, I think the transition are at least as important as the postures. So I think it's, for me, it's a question, it's like, that's happening. And the idea that something, we already speak about this, which is easy and quick to learn, and it's a little bit the same, remind me the debate for the simplification of the writing. It's like, it's hard to learn the Hanzi, we are backward regarding the West. So maybe we even should do a Roman with the pinyin, but finally, okay, we just simplify the character and okay. And this in the context of social acceleration, economic growth, hyperconnectivity, and this is even contradictory with the idea of Gong Fu, the Gong Fu, which is just you for a long time with diligence, you're going to achieve something, but so, and even we can ask ourselves if this is a new step for Taiji, because beginning it was a martial art to integrate some Yangsheng aspects. Then in the 20th century, it's a lot of insistence of the health, the openness in the city for people which are not so much to fight and stuff. And now Taiji, again, reinvented again, becomes a kind of medical tool. So it's strange. Yeah, and so, sorry for Gilles, but Gilles was just giving a little another aspect from spirituality a little bit and sociology. And just my general question for this panel, it was, for this aspect, it was, I would have here something from a fieldwork-based ethno-medicine perspective. Yeah, so I said it very, very quick, sorry, because the time passed and I have no water. I have no water for the time.
So it was water, not alcohol.
Oh, sorry.
Great, thank you very much,
last minute.
Georges, for this great comments and very clear and a lot of reflection. And, yeah, I have a question for you. It's Johan or Joan?
Joan.
Joan, sorry. So John, yeah, you was talking about the idea of to nourish the organ through the practice of the form, and I was related that to a recent research about depression, that they realized that maybe discovered that maybe depression may be linked to an infection of an organ. So it's not only a psychological, issue, but it can be a physical issue. I mean, an infection of an organ. And when I was listening to you about this idea of nourish the organ in order to cure or to treat the depression through the practice of the form, I don't know if you have met this. I mean, can you say something about that, please?
Yes. Yeah, who speaks first? Who I don't want to. Who speaks? Should I just go ahead?
And just a last question, and then I let you speak. It was about you are talking about a form, and I was wondering about immobility and the use of imagination during the process of, during the cure of, the treatment of depression. Do we use images to help the body to recover from a depression? Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, Johan, if I mean, we can change the order. It's okay, because whatever. If you're okay, Janwei, maybe we speak with Johan before, and then we come, since we begin already. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the two really specific questions first, and then go back to the more general comments. So in terms of the new research that depression may be related to an infection, and does that have anything to do with, this is Dr. Kuhn's comment to me on her form nourishing the organs. So it's important to remember the clarification that I made in my talk, that the organs that Dr. Kuhn is talking about are the organs in traditional Chinese medicine and not the Western organs. So there isn't an exact correspondence, and if you're curious about that, it's Ted Kapchick's book, The Web That Has No Weaver, that explains that really well. So there isn't an exact correspondence. But on the other hand, I think it is legitimate to talk about how the Chinese medicine understanding of depression makes it very somatic and doesn't make a complete separation between the mind and the body, which the Western medicine had traditionally. Now, even Western medicine is coming away from that, because we're finding that there are markers for depression that are linked with inflammation, like interleukin-6 and other markers, so it shows that, you know, the mind-body connection is real, and that depression is not all in your head. It's mediated by many mechanisms, and one of which may be inflammation. It's interesting in Kong's 2019 article on depression and Tai Chi, where he puts forth several concepts of the way that Tai Chi may mediate the process of helping depression. He talks about it as working again as anti-inflammatory, and there are other explanations. Dr. Kuhn talked about vagus nerve mediation. So certainly in both systems, not so much in the past in Western medicine, but today in Western medicine, and certainly in the Chinese medicine system, and the connection between Tai Chi and depression, you see that it's a mind-body approach. And the other question that you asked was very specific about, is about immobility and the use of the imagination during the process. And so it's interesting in trying to understand what is mediating the helpfulness of Tai Chi in depression, that it may not be only one mechanism. That Kong puts forth several different mechanisms that are possible, but in Peter Wayne's book, the Harvard Medical School Guide to Tai Chi, he talks about the eight principles, the 8 active ingredients of Tai Chi, and one of them is the imagination. So he has the awareness, the intention, structural integration, active relaxation, etc. So social support, embodied spirituality. So all of these may be integrated. And when he says intention, that might include the imagination in the way that Tai Chi is helping depression. But the imagination would be considered an internal part, and so, it's something besides a sequence of movements. And I haven't seen a study that looks specifically at if you do the external without the imagery, what is the difference? These 2 forms that were created are external forms, but all the Tai Chi classes I've been to integrate imagination. Now, immobility, also there's not in the 2 forms I spoke about, but there are standing practices. There are practices where you hold poses, and these are. I haven't seen a study exactly how that influences depression, but if you look at the mechanisms, some of the mechanisms, for example, vagus nerve modulation, could be present if you're immobile, but imagining or doing an internal practice. So immobility could. Do you want to clarify that? Did I answer your question, or was there an aspect I didn't get to on immobility?
Actually, because I was asking you the question about immobility and the use of intention, because I have observed on my field work that an extreme, an intense use of intention for years and years can lead to depression for some practitioners. They use too much intention in their practice, especially related to martiality, and because they use too much intention in order to be better in fighting. And the main exercise was immobility. The Jianzhuang, the Jianzhuang immobility. So it was not the learning on the form. It was to stand and to just use your mind to imagine a lot of kind of situations that you are in danger, that you have some danger around you, and you have to reveal that this instinct from inside, the wide part or the dark side of yourself. And it's very interesting because it's very related to the spirituality. Spirituality, it's a natural term. It's not it's a natural term. It's not about always about well-being and things like that. It's sometimes it can reveal the dark side of yourself, if I may say like that.
Well,
yeah. So
it's
that's why
interesting that you use that expression because this wasn't exactly related in my paper, but I don't know if you know, there's a professor at Brown University, and she's doing a project called The Dark Night of the Soul. And what she's interested in is spiritual practice gone wrong. And she's interviewing a lot of people who did intense meditation or certain spiritual practices and had negative experiences. So you might be interested in looking at her work. And Peter Wayne, I study with him, and he talks about, there is in the literature the idea of Qigong psychosis, but there are practices that are very safe, and there are safe ways of approaching this. I could imagine, I'm not familiar with that, using that intention of imagining a negative scene, that could be for people who are vulnerable, that could cause difficulties, just as ruminating or catastrophizing, it sounds a little bit close to catastrophizing, actually can lead to depression. So it would seem to me that practice would have to be very carefully taught. But the immobility in itself, with positive imagination built up slowly, we do in class and is part of many Tai Chi practices that people find helpful for their health. Did that answer a little bit better?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was
good.
very clear. Thank you very much.
Just if I take the ball, when I do my military service, it was always, okay, you have an enemy between that tree, that stuff, then you have to fight that. I mean, it's a training. So I know after when I go to walk in the forest, I need a few years after to be totally relaxed, you know. But and I never went on the field of on the battlefield, far away. But I mean, in the context of really martial training, it's not fun. I mean, it's very interesting to see this kind of experience of spirituality of people who probably are looking for this well-being, and in fact, through bad methods or through awakening some part and then having kind of pathologies. Yeah, the two aspects are interesting because there are some people who really fight some bad energies around in the world.
Yeah, so it's there is interest in this, but in the studies that are being done right now, and in the forms that are being created by the doctors who are doing it for health reasons and the simplifications, and Peter Wayne in his experience, what he's told us is he has not seen this in what he's teaching, because what he's teaching is very grounding. And he's also very careful. You were saying, you were questioning about the simplification in light of, is that contradictory with the idea of Gong Fu, which is working on something difficult for a long time. And I don't know how much this is in terms of the Western experience of learning Tai Chi, but what Peter found was that initially Westerners who come to learn the form find it very difficult, and perhaps because it's not part of everyone's culture, they give up too easily. And so the simplified forms are a way in, and that may be where one ends, but they also could be a way to start and to pique a person's interest and to get the beginning idea of the qualities of Tai Chi and how it feels to do it and how people feel better. And then people often continue to learn more complicated forms. And just one other question that you raised in the beginning, just to answer some of the differences between Tai Chi and general exercise. So there are some similarities in terms of helping depression, and one is it both help release neurotrophic factors. But there are many differences because the Western exercise don't include all the aspects of the 8 active ingredients. They don't always include the imagery or the social support or the help with interoception or the rhythmic movement, which isn't one of the 8, but which has been noted in some studies as making people feel calmer and better.
Thank you. Janwei?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. You are very tired. Thank you very much. This is an interesting topic. And just as Pierre and Laura have said, Tai Chi have many aspects on human people. But why? That's why it's a thing I always think and think. At first, I think, what is Tai Chi? Let's think. Just as the moment Wu Dong, Beijing Normal University, is also my teacher. He is the master of the Tai Chi in China. He's very famous. And we have our class on. He said that Tai Chi has many styles, such as 24 and 48 and 13. Yes, but why it is different? Why it is different? I think it is 2 reasons. The first reason is Tai Chi has its own principle. Principle it means in China is 心静体松. The English is 心静 means your mind. Just as the Laura said, your mind and your body is relaxed. The first principle. A second, and I think there is 3 elements of touching. The first is yi, qi. Second is qi. The 3 is mind. Why? Yi, the English name is your mind. Qi, the English name is breathe. So breathe. And the 3 and xing is your body. At the first stage, we should recommend our people notice the xing, your body, not head, not the, this is. The sense that we have your.
心一圈的心吗？
Yeah, yes, 行一圈的行 yeah. The second is your yi, your qi. Qi is your breath, in breath and out breath. For example, I have example. When your 站桩, the Chinese name is 站桩, you open your hand and your breath is xi, and close your hand. Who you put your hand, xi, put down your hand, who. But I don't think in many RCT just recommend controlled trials they published in, for example, in the New England Journal of Medicine. The author is Fu Zhongli, is very famous in China, and famous. Last year I have exchange with him. He said he used 8 Tai Chi, 八式太极. I asked a question. Why do you choose 8 Tai Chi? He answered the question is, the first, it is easy, especially for old man. For old man, for example, swimming they don't, and running they don't, maybe hurt. And your Tai Chi is soft. It is safety for his body, and very important. Just as the Laura said, the Peter Wayne is American, very famous in Tai Chi result. But I had an important question also. Let's exchange. Let's talk about it. The first question is, I think, how do you assess the participant master your Tai Chi? When you teach your principle, they learn 3 years or 1 year. Can you assess if or not master the Tai Chi? I ask. Let's talk about this. And the second question is, how do you control the intensity of the exercise? As we all know, especially my focus on chronic disease, for coronary heart disease. How do you control the intensity? It's very important. What if it hurt? We can control it. And here I have experience in my trial. Has published in BMG Open. This is a protocol. When I teach my patients, when exercise the Tai Chi, I give him the polar words at the breast, polar words I can your heart. The results show that when exercise 1 set of Tai Chi, your heart is average about 100 beats a minute, not more than 120. Okay, this is very safe for there. So I choose my Tai Chi, but I don't know the others if do the basic research for their intensity. This I want to talk about. I think in summer, I want to talk. We now do many trials with Tai Chi. We must think it is really Tai Chi, not a Tai Chi Chao. It is really Tai Chi. We must think. The teacher, the master, your teacher, or if he has mastered the Tai Chi, have two people. I also expressed my ideas about one paper published BMG Open. I choose six or people's master will be determined by professional coaches. The mastery of Tai Chi was assessed and quantified due to the following six factors. The first is your body shape should keep straight and upright. And the second is your creative center shift is right, not move, not this. And the second is your act moves in an order. And four is moving speed has a sense of the rhythm. And the seven is action and movement content writing and reading and various set consume a similar term. And at the end of the learning stage, the three coaches I chose were chosen randomly to work as the examiner. The professional coaches randomly to work as the examiner. The professional coaches scored on a principle basis according to about the six dimensions. Only the participants who get the average scores higher than 20 will be certified to be qualified and moved on the 12 step. This is our method to do our trials. I want to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Jaurès.
You're welcome.
I don't know because now it's you ask the question, so we have to answer. But in fact, it makes me think when you said which way I assess the changes from my students and stuff. But one thing which is very different is my students. I don't have a medical perspective on them. It's not like patients who have some kind of disease and come to me. So I can assess. I think I'm interested in two aspects for myself. Is a general understanding of the principle of the technique, like smooth moving and like to have more acute movements and stuff. And the second is also a little bit more psychological or behavioral, or kind of do they enter the relationship in a smoother way or things like this? I don't know, maybe, but it's very subjective and holistic. I mean, it's not. I don't even have a kind of. I don't have to mesurate any quantity or to give any notes or medal or whatever at the end of the year or black belt or something. We don't do this. So for just my example, but so it's again the question of the context of practice, and because with the context of practice, it's the meaning of practice also. The two questions are very linked, I think.
Yes.
So some reactions, some general information.
Yeah, perhaps I would have a question for Joan. By tailored set, like what do you mean by, like how can we tailor a set of Tai Chi Chuan movements in order to treat a disease? What would be the process like? Would it be to control the length or to control the type of movements, or what are the parameters?
Right. So what I looked at was two different approaches. even though they were both Jung and Kuhn were tailoring Tai Chi for depression, their approaches were completely different. So Aihan Kuhn was looking at it from a Chinese medicine perspective, where there is a traditional understanding of a link between certain poses, movements, and their effect on certain organs in the traditional Chinese medicine sense. And so her form uses movements that are known to, in this tradition, to lift mood, and she puts them together and creates a beautiful form. And as you were commenting on, she's beginning a tradition. Dr. Jung, who's a psychiatrist and works at Mass General, and also a Tai Chi teacher, had a different approach. And so in his experience, he saw that when depressed patients come in to learn Tai Chi, it's too hard for them because depression affects the memory. So specifically for depression, he felt that it was important to simplify and to get rid of the transitions. And so he chose movements that are also extremely beautiful, a lot of splitting energy, movements that he really liked, but he simplified. He took out the transitions and he created a form that way. And his principle was, his guiding principle was to help the patient gain self-efficacy so that the students could learn the form easily and get some benefit soon. So even though they both doctors tailored forms for depression and they're both experienced in Tai Chi and knowledgeable, their forms are, and they're both Tai Chi forms, they're very different, and their forms are creation of the forms, the process of the creation of the forms was consistent with their personal philosophy, which they each explain in the books that they've written.
Thanks.
So we have a Japanese spy in the panel.
maybe I know him.
Yeah, I think I spot a Japanese spy. Maybe a comparative perspective for the end, some sharing for the reconciliation of Japan and China or something like this. No, nothing special, no inspiration. And we have also some hidden Veronica or Info. Okay, Info. Yannick, hello Yannick. Nancy, and Juan. So if somebody wants to say something, to share, or to ask some question, they're already asleep, maybe. So yeah. I think.
No, it was me. Yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry.
It's Nancy. Nancy, she said no question, but thank you. And yeah, so I think at the end, in the beginning, when I saw all the papers, I think it's very diverse issues, but at the end, I think it's a lot of questions and trends of changes, which were like crisscrossing in all these contributions. And it was especially, I think, interesting to put also into regard like these two approaches from really fieldwork traditions and their change in a more historical and anthropological perspective, and this clinical aspect, which from the point of view of anthropology is totally decontextualized and totally, but which is also as a result and is understood in the Western institutions and modern institutions. And so I think it's very important to take all those aspects together. And so it was nice to spend this time with you. I had fun, and it was very interesting. And so I thank you all. And so
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. So,
yeah, thank you very much to all of you to participate. And I wish we would have the pleasure to meet in real next time. I don't know where, maybe in China, because if you are in China, and for some of you, we can meet in China, or for a next martial art studies conference with Paul Bowman, maybe in Europe.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Next year.
We like Switzerland, no?
Yeah, no. So because next year it will be in Switzerland, in Lausanne.
Yeah, right.
Okay, but so maybe. And yeah, we also it's the occasion to say in Paris, the 5th of March, we're going to have in Inalco one day for but it would be in French. It's a Chinese martial culture. It's I organize with Jiju in the Inalco, and it's we plan a book about this. So because I think at least in French we do this the first meeting for this last October, and we just realized that it was the first time that sinologists gather to speak about martial culture or martial arts, and so I think we are also here in the beginning of a movement. It's like the the development, the early phase of a development of a research area. I think the level of the scientific quality, and also the intensity of the interdisciplinarity and the exchange is what we have done today. We work on that, but I think it's still in this maturation phase. But in 5 or 10 years, I think it's going to be a unrecognized field of studies. So maybe one day we will have our statues as founding ancestors of martial arts studies on some remote altars. But we could say we will say to our grandchildren we were there.
Right.
So wish you all a good time in all your countries and families and friends, and have a good health and everything positive. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.